and welcome back to our focus. And now that your brains are all going, that really takes some focus, doesn't it? What you guys just did, you really have to study, and you can't be thinking about anything else when you're really honed in and trying to figure out what's different between the two pictures, finding the little details that we're missing. You really have to pay attention. Kind of like when you take a test too. You can't be like thinking about your favorite song or what's going to be for dinner. You really, because you're never going to get it done. You got to, it's almost like tunnel vision. You have to focus and you got to get it done, right? Okay, so the last couple of weeks we've been talking about, our topic is focus. And week 1 we talked about focus on what God has said. And how do we find out what God has said? Pray. Yep. And what else can we do? How can we find out what God said? Read the Bible. His words are right in there. Absolutely. Yes. All right. And week 2, we talked about focus on giving something up, right? Becky talked about that last week, and with fasting, and not necessarily fasting food, but fasting something that takes up a lot of your time. And replacing that with focused time with God, right? To focus on that and get rid of all the other distractions. So this week we are continuing, and our big idea for this week is focus on talking to God. Actually taking that time, that one next step, and having a conversation with God, which is called prayer. But sometimes you get all hung up on the word prayer, and well, I don't know how I'm supposed to do that. Is there supposed to be music playing? Am I supposed to be, all quiet, tucked away, candles lit and all that, and, using specific words? And prayer is a conversation. Just like you would have with mom or dad or with your best friend, it's just talking to God. And we're going to dive into this a little bit and get a little bit deeper into this. But first, I have a video for you, and this is on a guy named John Moshita, I think, Jr., and he is demonstrating his fast talking abilities, and maybe you know him, but let's watch that video real quick.
That is the question whether it's spoken in the Microsoft or season out of a really fortunate concert. You see a trouble light once again, the dice super secret energy bring my life. The micro machine, man, anytime the generator was like glossy flexible, but midget is micro machine. A lot of people know me as the micro machine man, or the FedEx guy, or a turbo piston burger from Saved by the Bell, or just that guy who talks fast. In fact, I was in the Guinness Book of the World's Fastest Talker, and so for the last 40 years, if you needed a fast talker, I was your go-to guy.
That was it? Okay. Well, I watched a little bit more on him because I found this fascinating. And he was saying that when he was real young, he wanted to be famous for something. And so, he's looking, there's all these things you can think, well, maybe sports or maybe music or, just something. And he got a hold of a Guinness Book of World Records, and he's flipping through it. And he sees fast talker. So he started at like the age of, 8 or 12, somewhere in there, and he focused all of his attention and all of his extra time that he had on learning how to talk fast. Absolutely amazing. There's a little, the video goes on that tells a little bit more about how he does things. And he not just is a fast talker, but he has figured out exactly how many words per minute he needs to say, like if you're just one-on-one, as opposed to if he's being on TV, he needs to slow down just a little bit. So there's a certain number of words per second that he needs to say for TV. And then if he's on the radio, he needs to slow it down a little bit more because you don't have that visual of watching his mouth and his lips that you're just hearing. And apparently our hearing is slower. So he has to talk a little bit slower in order for you to catch everything over the radio. It was very fascinating. But the amount of time and effort and focus that he put into the years of his life of learning how to talk so fast and to make the syllables with his mouth and still to be able to understand what he's saying, which I didn't catch half of that. But he actually made a living from this. He's done countless commercials over the years, and if anybody needs something for fasting, so he's actually made a living by doing what he spent all this time focusing on. So this is a great example of what you put your mind to, you can accomplish, right? Like schoolwork. Imagine where you can go if you do your best on every homework, every quiz, every test, where you're going to end up. So, just a thought. Okay. It says here, he was once known as the fastest talking guy on the planet. So obviously there must be somebody out there who's faster now. He could say 583 words a minute.
Oh my gosh.
I don't even think I can think up that many words in a minute. And form syllables 5 times faster than anyone else. It's amazing. Let's just say he's a fast talker who has no problem with words, right? Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to do some talking, all right? So we're going to pair up in twos, and you're going to take turns, and one person, and I'm going to set a timer for 30 seconds. You don't have to do fast talking, but I want you to talk continuously for those 30 seconds about anything you want to talk about. So think about all those things that you're involved in, whether it's school or things going on at home, or maybe your pets, or, you know, your abilities, your like music, or think about those things that you're passionate about, because those are the things that you can talk about a lot. Like I can talk about my cats forever. I can talk about baking and cooking. I can talk about my 4 boys forever to anybody who would listen. So think about those things that you're passionate about, and you don't have to be the fast talker, but I just want to see if you can talk for 30 seconds without stopping. And you can jump all over the place. You can talk about this and then talk about this and then go back to this. And it doesn't matter what you talk about, okay? So
Can you give us 10 or 15 seconds to figure out what it is we're going to talk about?
Yep, absolutely. But find everybody pair up with a 2 and 2 and 2 and 2. All right, and I'll set the timer. And figure out who's going to talk first and then who's going to talk second, because you're each going to get a chance. Okay, and I'm going to throw one more caveat in. Okay, so one person's talking for 30 seconds, the other person is listening. But the person listening has to remember one fact that the person says, okay, to share. Yeah, we'll just real quick she talked about rabbits or something like that. Just so you're listening, that you have to pay attention and focus to what she's saying and not just like blah, 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 blah. Okay? All right. I lost my timer. All right. Everybody know who's talking first? Yeah. Okay. Ready? Oh, sorry. I was going to make you go a minute. That would have been really rude. My apologies.
Now, we can't ask them or prompt them. They just have to keep going.
Yep, the person who's listening, lips closed. But listen. Okay, ready, set, go. Stop. Good job. How did we all do? Was everybody able to talk the whole 30 seconds? Okay, share with me one thing. Okay.
She talked about her dog.
Okay. Okay. Christian Jackson, who listened?
He managed to get two surveys.
Okay.
Ariel was telling me about horseback riding and how the last time she went, it was like led, and this one is going to be like on her own, like riding, and it's not an actual stable or a barn, but it's kind of like a place where they do horseback riding, like classes and things.
Okay. Very cool. All right, now let's switch. You ready? On your mark, get set, go. All righty, time's up. All right, how'd the talking go? Was it continuous?
Kind of.
Yeah? All right, what's the one thing you took away?
She wants a hamster.
Excellent.
Oh, she was talking about her dog.
Okay?
She was talking about how the dance was boring and then how many shoes she has.
I got all my shoes out and I have like 21 pairs of shoes.
All right.
And I was talking about his son.
Very good.
I was talking about the 1940s and the Lend-Lease program.
Okay.
The Lend-Lease program.
Look at Diane's surprised face. Not surprised.
All right. Very good. Okay. Was that hard? Was it a little awkward? Or were you really just very easily to just go ahead and just for hours? Yeah, yeah.
About her shoes.
So did anybody find that difficult or a little bit like out of your comfort zone to talk about yourself?
So me and Jordan do that all the time.
Yeah. Okay. Now everybody was okay with that? Okay. All right. Have you ever had heard that public speaking is like the one thing that people are really, like it's one of the top things that people fear is getting up in front of a group of people talking or in front of your class to give a presentation or anything. That's like one of the top fears. And I don't think this only applies to speaking on stage, but also one-on-one. You know, it was easy for you guys because you've been friends forever, but say you turn around to talk with somebody in the grocery store and you've never seen them and you don't know anything about them, would you feel as comfortable talking to them for 30 seconds as right here this morning? No. Yeah. Okay. A little different with people you're not comfortable with, you don't know. And has anybody like had a conversation and you just like, I don't know, you lost your train of thought or you said something that made the whole situation really awkward and you're just like, oh, I'm so sorry I did that. Has anybody ever been in that position? Yeah. Well, the more years you go travel around the sun, that's going to happen. Yep, absolutely. It's coming. Yep. All right. Talking to people may not always feel easy to you, which is why talking to God can feel challenging too. So let's talk about how to make it a little less awkward and a lot more meaningful. At least here on earth, you've got a face of another person that you're talking to. But when you're talking to God, you know, you almost wish, like, God, why can't you just come down and have a seat in the chair next to me so we can chat about this? Or, in here it was talking about, well, wouldn't it have been cool if Jesus set up all of his social media before he left? So we can text him or send him an email or Instagram, whatever. Just, hey, God, I got this prayer, or hey, I'm struggling with this, and boom, get an instant response. That's a lot easier. It's really hard. It's really hard to talk to God when you don't have somebody right there in front of you, okay? Because a lot of times your mind starts to wander. And I have that problem. When it gets warmer, I go out and walk a lot. And a lot of times I'll spend time talking with God. And I'll start out and I'll be praying for certain people, and then the next thing I know, I'm like, oh, look at the birds over here, how cool, or oh, look at this house, I really like how they're painting it, and I'm like, wait a minute, what was I just doing? And then I gotta get back on track, and I gotta focus on what I'm doing, because the devil will do anything to draw our attention away from our time with God. He desperately wants to do that, to distract us, to keep our focus off of God. And he'll make each and every one of you so busy with your schoolwork and your extracurricular activities and your chores and everything that needs to happen in your life. He likes to pile it on and pile it on. And you're like, oh, I'm too busy. I don't have time to sit down and read my Bible and to have a conversation with God. I've got to get all this stuff done. I got homework due tomorrow. I don't have time for that. And God's like, yes, got him again. So keep that in mind, that these are all distractions that God set, or the devil's setting up for us so that we don't spend time with God. And I think it was the beginning of this year that I heard something someplace, and it was like a slap in my face. And it says, because I love to listen to Christian music, like the songs that we listen to, that's all I listen to. And I think it drives my boys nuts, so that's all I listen to. But I heard something, and it said, the devil wants you to listen to worship music, because then I'm spending all my time listening, and I'm not reading my Bible. He has distracted me, and even though the music is good, but it's distracting me because I'm thinking, oh, I'm listening to the music, so I don't need to do this as much, because I'm still getting the scriptures and I'm listening to what's going on. But it's distracting me and pulling me away from getting into the Bible and studying and reading and memorizing scriptures and spending that time with God. So that was a huge slap in my face, and I'm like, oh, I've been doing that. I'm listening to music, I'm good. And to get that association, so we got to watch out. The devil, he's really tricky, and he wants to catch us. So you got to keep on guard and don't let him weasel his way into your life and get you distracted off on the wrong path. Okay? Next, how am I doing? Okay. Next, we're going to do a group discussion. So I'd like some input from everybody. I got a couple questions, maybe. One more? Thank you. Okay. What is something you could talk about for hours? Just name off one thing. We'll just go down the list. What's one thing you could talk about for hours? The Bible. Wonderful.
My
Friends?
friends. My
Family?
family.
Family? Yeah. School. Good. Horses. History. Yes. Sports. Taylor?
Oh, family.
Family. Okay. Becky, what about you?
Family.
Jacob?
Of course.
Yes. All right. Very good. What are some reasons a conversation with someone might get awkward?
If it gets dead silent.
Dead silence, yeah. And what might cause a dead silence?
You run out of things to talk about.
Right? Or maybe you're talking, it's like, I just got this little puppy, and you start talking, and they're like, well, I don't like dogs. That kind of like, political, yes, yep, that can make things awkward, yep. Yeah. So there's things that can be said in a conversation with people you know and people you don't know that you're like, ooh, I shouldn't have said that. Okay? What are some reasons people might find prayer awkward and challenging? You know, so maybe if you're not one who's praying right now because you're like, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to say, I'm just not going to do it. Maybe when I get older, I'll figure it out. What are some things that make prayer challenging or awkward for you? Or theoretically, maybe it's not you, maybe you don't have a problem, but you might think that somebody might have an issue because of this. Christian?
Because you're like basically just talking to yourself, I feel like.
Yeah, you feel like you're talking to yourself. Yep, absolutely. And you don't get a response, so you're like, this is pointless. A little louder for me. You don't know how to start. Yep, absolutely. Anything else? No? Okay, that's good. Can you relate to any of these reasons that we talked about? No, nope, my prayer life's great, or yeah, I struggle with that sometimes. Yeah, I think we all do. I think we all do. Yep, good. Okay, so I've got another video for you. Let's see, in just a second. All right. Okay. Learning how to talk to God can be the same way. It might feel uncomfortable or weird for a while. You aren't the only one who feels this way. There are people in the Bible who felt awkward talking to God as well. And we're going to look at John chapter 4, verses 5 through 30. But instead of reading all of that, I thought watching a video of it. Has anybody read or heard about Jesus and the woman at the well? The Samaritan woman? Yeah? Okay. So let's just watch that real quick.
So when Jesus heard what had been said, he left Judea and went back to Galilee. On his way there, he had to go through Samaria. In Samaria, he came to a town named Sychar, which was not far from the field that Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, tired out by the trip, sat down by the well. It was about noon. A Samaritan woman came to draw some water.
Give me a drink of water.
His disciples had gone into town to buy food.
You're a Jew and I'm a Samaritan. So how can you ask me for a drink?
Jews will not use the same cups and bowls that Samaritans use.
If you only knew what God gives, and who it is that is asking you for a drink, you would ask him. And he would give you a life-giving water.
Sir, you don't have a bucket and the well is deep. Where would you get that life-giving water? It was our ancestor Jacob who gave us this well. He and his children and his flocks all drank from it. You don't claim to be greater than Jacob, do you?
Those who drink this water will get thirsty again. But those who drink the water that I will give them will never be thirsty again. The water that I will give them will become in them a spring, which will provide them with life-giving water and give them eternal life.
Sir, give me that water, and I will never be thirsty again, nor will I have to come here to draw water.
Go and call your husband and come back.
I don't have a husband.
You're right when you say you don't have a husband. You've been married to 5 men, and the man you live with now is not really your husband. You're told me the truth.
You are right, sir. My Samaritan ancestors worshipped God on this mountain, but you Jews say that Jerusalem is the place where we should worship God.
Believe me, woman. The time will come when people will not worship the Father either on this mountain or in Jerusalem. You Samaritans do not believe in whom you worship. But we Jews know whom we worship because is already here. When by the power of God's Spirit, people will worship the Father as he really is, offering him the true worship it was. God is Spirit, and only by the power of his Spirit can people worship him as he really is.
I know that the Messiah will come. And when he comes, he will tell us everything.
I am he. I am talking with you.
At that moment, Jesus' disciples returned, and they were greatly surprised to find him talking with a woman. But none of them said to her, "What do you want?" or asked him, "Why are you talking with her?" Then the woman left her water jar and went back to the town.
Come and see the man who told me everything I've ever done. Could you be the Messiah?
I love this. This is absolutely amazing. Jesus doesn't care who she is, what her background is. He cares about her and just wants to chat with her. How many of you wish you could be this woman and sit down and have a chat with Jesus? How awesome was that experience that she had? And you can tell, even just in the acting here, how, and you can just imagine what the real woman at the well, the emotions, and when she finally, realized that she was talking with the Messiah, and took off running to tell everybody. So just very cool. The fact that she could sit down and be eye to eye and listen to what he was saying is amazing. There are a few things we can learn from this conversation with the Samaritan woman. The chat that Jesus had with this Samaritan woman wasn't just an ordinary chat. It had a lot of history around it, history that the potential to make this conversation pretty awkward, okay? Jews like Jesus and the Samaritans, like the woman at the well, had a long history of disagreements. They clashed culturally. But they also had big disagreements about God, too, and you could hear them talking about that during the video. And these differences had created a huge divide between the two groups, to the point where they didn't want anything to do with the other. Not only did tensions exist between the cultural differences, but Jesus and this woman, but because of their genders, too. Women were not regarded in the same place as men. So the fact that he was talking to a woman made it even more, I don't want to say scandalous, but, why are you talking to her? You shouldn't be doing that. Jesus was defying a lot of the social norms, just not paying any attention to what the rules and the cultures were, but he was doing what was right. He was showing love to this woman. To most people, it would have been pretty scandalous to see this conversation happening. On top of that, there's also the issue of this woman's past, her love life. Now remember, this story doesn't take place during our time or our culture, so the things we might assume about this story might not be correct. When Jesus counts her husbands, we might think he's implying she has been sinning and should be ashamed of her choices. While that could be the case, there are other things that are more likely the reason. At that time, women didn't have the same kind of freedom to choose their own husbands like we do today. Without a husband, women were often excluded from society. Based on the time of day, she was drawing water from the well, which was high noon, and there was nobody else at the well because people didn't normally go out at the hottest time of the day. They would go first thing in the morning or later at night when it was cooler. It's likely she was there to try to avoid other women, or because other women wanted to avoid her. Plus, women relied on their husbands for financial security. They couldn't make money. Okay? So while it's possible Jesus was challenging her life choices, many believe Jesus was letting her know he understood her needs before she even mentioned them to him. He saw the truth of her situation. And for these reasons, this woman was astounded that Jesus would acknowledge her and confused about whether or not she should be talking to him. You could see a little bit of hesitation, and when they first started chatting, she's like, well, why are you talking to me? You shouldn't be doing that. Despite the potential awkwardness, and there was a lot of that there, the woman decided to continue talking to Jesus. Especially, you could see the look on her face when she's like, oh, are you a prophet? And then she just started going, blah, 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 question after question about God and all of this. And then when she found out he was the Messiah, two things were revealed. The truth about who she was revealed because Jesus knows everything. He knows everything about us, what we think, what's in our hearts. He knows it all. So it's okay for us to go to him and chat with him because he already knows, but he wants us to share our life with him. And also the truth about who Jesus was. Jesus told her, I am the Messiah. I can give you that living water. And then off she goes, right? She left her water jug and everything. Their conversation was full of surprises, but the biggest surprise was when she realized she was indeed speaking with God. She was so amazed and in awe of the words they exchanged that she left her water jug and ran to tell everybody. Now, this is probably somebody who was despised by the rest of the community, hence why she was going out at noontime. So for her to go running out into the community and talking with anybody she could find was a huge change in her behavior, because I imagine most of the time she stayed indoors and did not attend social events or go out into the community because of her past. She kind of just kept to herself. And now here she is running out and she's talking with everyone. You got to come see, you got to come see. This guy knew everything about me. He's the Messiah. You got to come see him. So a complete change from a conversation with God, with Jesus. And that can happen with each and every one of us. The more time that we spend talking with God, our lives are going to be changed for the better. So this is a perfect example of what can happen when you take that time and talk with God. When she shifted her focus to talking to God, she learned more about who Jesus was. And the same with us. The more we spend time talking with God and reading the Bible to find out more about his character, how he wants us to live. The whole New Testament is about Jesus' life, and it shows us all the things that he did so we can see how he interacts with people. So we can learn from that and take it and live our lives using that information to encounter and interact with people the way he did, because that's what we're called to do. Every day we're called to be more like Jesus and to live like him. Okay? All right. All right. Another quick little group discussion. What's something that, if it were possible, would make prayer much easier for you? What would make prayer easier for you? Any thoughts? Jesus, come sit down right here next to me. I'd pray all day, every day. I'd skip work. I'd make my kids go to the store and buy their own food. If Jesus was right here, I would want to talk with him. How about you? Yeah? Okay. Why don't you think God chose to make prayer work like that? Would your faith be as strong? No, it wouldn't. Say, Jesus, I need you right now. I need to chat. Right? He wants us to believe in him because we choose to. He wants us to rely on him and to give him our troubles and to talk with him about the good things happening in our life. Right? Okay. Have you ever learned something about yourself or God while you were praying? And if you haven't, I'm going to tell you it's because you haven't done it enough. Because when you're having, it's just like with family or friends. The more you chat, you two here, you know so much about each other. I'm guessing you probably know everything about each other. And that didn't happen just in the 5 minutes this morning. We're probably talking years. Yes, right? The more time you invest in getting to know that friend, the more you learn about them. It's the same with God. The more time you spend sitting down and talking with him, sharing your life with him, reading in the Bible about him and his life and his character and how he wants you to live, right? That's what he wants. He wants us to have faith and believe in him and trust him and come to him, okay? It can be intimidating talking to God, but it's something that if you practice, it gets easier over time. Just like if you have an instrument, first time you play it, it's a little different than 4 years down the road. It's a lot easier. Same with sports. First time you try to kick a soccer ball and score a goal is a lot different than 4 years later. The more time you put in, the more effort you put in, the more focus you put in, the better and easier it's going to get. Okay? We're going to have a look at Psalm 18, verse 6. And I just want you to sit, and I'm going to read it to you twice, and I just want you to listen. Just listen, okay? In my distress, I called to the Lord. I cried to my God for help. From his temple, he heard my voice. My cry came before him into his ears. I'm going to read that one more time. In my distress, I called to the Lord. I cried to my God for help. From his temple, he heard my voice. My cry came before him into his ears. Can we read this together, or can you repeat after me? In my distress, I called to the Lord. I cried to my God for help. From his temple, he heard my voice. My cry came before him into his ears. This is David who wrote this, King David, probably before he was king, but it could have been after because he had a lot of trouble all throughout. But did he wait for the situation to be resolved before he went to God? This sounds like he's right in the thick of whatever mess he's got himself in or he's found himself in. Yes? Mm-hmm. And what does he do? Who does he turn to? In my distress, I call to the Lord. He cries out to God for help. Help me, help me. And then he knows that God loves him and God hears him. He knows that, and that's comfort, okay? So whenever you find yourself in the thick of things, you too, and the Psalms are full of prayers for all different kinds of situations. And you can read these. If you can't find words for yourself, you can go to the Bible, and you can use the words that are there, and you can use them, and that's great. That's okay. You don't have to come up with your own and make up your own. It's just a conversation, but if you're stuck for words, go to the Psalms. Read through those. Find something. Talk to God using the Psalms, okay? You'll also find in the Psalms good things, praising God, thanking God, and those are things we can do too. That's when I start my prayers, I always start with, God, you are amazing. You've created the whole world. You've created the universe. I praise him. I thank him for everything that he's done. You've created, our bodies and the way that everything interacts with the world and everything's connected. That's so amazing. And the beautiful colors of the sunsets and the flowers, that's all you, for us to appreciate you. So I start by thanking him and praising him. And then I can move on to, well, listen, I've got people in my life that need prayer. And I talk to him about, well, can you please see? And you guys are on my list a lot. I pray for you guys a lot because I love you and I care for you, and I know all the leaders do that. So if ever you have a situation where you want prayer, more direct prayer, we would love to pray for you, okay? And lift you up. We'll see prayers of rage, angry, disappointment, pity, passion, and doubt all mixed in together. If you've ever had an emotion, I guarantee it. David's had it too, and he's written about it. It's in the Bible. It's all there. What we learn from prayers like these is that it's safe to share it all. You can come to a conversation with God using all of your emotions and feelings. He's strong. He can take it. He's got a really strong shoulder. You can cry all you want. He's got a little tube and he collects all our tears. He loves us so much. Talking to God can feel intimidating. It can, if you're not doing it regularly. But as soon as you start and you do it again and you do it again, it gets easier and it gets easier. And then you find that you don't want to go a day without doing it because he's such a pillar of strength and that strong foundation under your feet that he'll keep you steady. Okay, you can cry out to God. You can feel vulnerable. Jesus shows us God isn't out to get us. He loves us. God sent Jesus to love and care for us. So, focus on talking to God. That is what I want you to take away from today, okay? This week, I hope you'll continue having conversations with God, or if you haven't started, that you'll start. And you can set your timer for 1 minute and just chat with God the way we did this morning, where I set a 30-second timer and you chatted with your friend next to you. Set a timer just for 1 minute and talk to God. Tell him what's going on in your life, okay? And then do it again the next day. And then after a week, maybe try 2 minutes and build up and see how your life can change and will change. Just like the woman at the well, her life changed because she spoke with God. Okay? All right. Prayer can be challenging, but remember, when you're talking to God, he is listening. He understands you. He's talking back to you. When you're quiet and you're still and you're reading your Bible or you're having that conversation and then you just kind of sit for a minute, thoughts will pop into your head. And that's God. And that's God. Or you'll be doing something mindlessly and you'll be like, oh, something just came to your mind. That's God. He's like a gentle little whisper in your voice, and you got to be quiet to hear it. Okay? Okay. So focus on talking to God this week. Okay? All right. That's what I got.
Beauty, thank you. Okay, so a couple things that Diane hit on. One, right? It's written in Scripture, right? John 20:29, where it says, Jesus said, "Because you have seen, you have believed. Blessed are those who have not seen, but have believed." So there's a part of that faith measure that comes in there that we have to believe without seeing. All right? The other thing is, right, where he said, cry out in distress. There was a couple of years ago, I was coming to church early in the morning because I get here at like 7 o'clock on a Sunday, and it was in the middle of the winter, and where I have to come from, I come down Route 365 and turn onto the like arterial bridge, but you got to go under that thing where it says, welcome to Rome, and there's the map there. Right before that, I hit some black ice. And I saw the big New York State thing that said, welcome to Rome, and I thought I was going to be welcome somewhere else. And I just said, dear Jesus! Because that's what we do, right? And my car just automatically got right back into track and got my heart beating a little bit quickly and stuff like that. So sometimes when we call upon the Lord, he can take care of things that quickly. I want to share something.